The stars had always been cold to them. For generations, the alien race known as the Thalori had watched their worlds fall one by one. Their defenses had broken, their fleets scattered, their colonies burned. The invaders who came against them showed no mercy. The Thalori were not warriors. They were builders, scholars, and dreamers. They had crafted great cities of glass and stone filled with beauty and song. But those things meant nothing to the enemy that hunted them. When the end grew near, when the last stronghold of the Thalori was surrounded, their leaders made a desperate choice. They sent a signal into the black void of space. It was not a message of pride. It was not a call for allies. It was a cry for help. The words were simple. To any who hear, we are dying. Save us, we beg you. For weeks there was no answer. Their transmissions echoed across empty stars, unheard and unanswered. The Thalori began to believe no one would come. Then one day a reply arrived. A voice unlike any they had known, calm but heavy as if carrying the weight of storms. This is Earth. We have received your call. Hold your ground. We are coming. The Thalori cheered, though many of them did not understand who these humans were. They had heard whispers in the galaxy, scattered rumors of a species from a hostile world, but they had never seen them. They clung to hope, telling themselves that saviors had answered, that perhaps their children might yet live to see another dawn. But those who knew the stories trembled. They remembered the warnings spoken in hushed voices, warnings of a people forged in fire, a people born on what others called a death world. The day the fleet arrived, the Thalori gathered in silence. Their last city stood in the shadow of their burning skies. The air shook with the distant thunder of the enemy bombardment. Then the horizon changed. At first they thought it was a storm, a wave of shadows rolling across the void. But the shadows grew sharper, darker, shaped not by nature but by design. Ships, hundreds of them. They were not beautiful like Thalori craft, nor sleek like the enemy vessels. The human ships were vast and brutal, built not to impress but to endure. Their hulls carried scars of old battles. Their weapons gleamed like the teeth of predators. And they moved with the terrible patience of hunters who had killed 1,000 times before. The enemy fleet turned to meet them. They laughed, for they had fought many species and crushed them all. They had never heard of humans. To them this was only one more trivial war. They would burn Earth's ships as they had burned countless others, but the humans did not answer their taunts. They spoke only once more, their message carried across the stars. You called for help. We are here. Stand behind us. The rest is war. The first volley of fire lit the darkness. The enemy opened with a storm of plasma, a sea of burning light. But the human fleet did not scatter. They advanced. Their ships groaned and flared as shields strained, but still they pressed forward, every vessel moving as if guided by one relentless will. Then came the answer. The Deathworld Fleet unleashed its fury. Beams of energy cut through the void with merciless precision. Rail cannons spat metal slugs the size of houses, tearing enemy hulls apart. Missiles screamed across the black, chasing their targets until they burst into fire. And where other species might have faltered, the humans surged into close combat, their warships ramming, tearing, and burning as if battle itself was in their blood. The Thalori watched in shock. They had asked for salvation, but what they saw was not mercy. It was destruction. Humanity did not fight like others. Humanity did not seek balance or retreat. They fought with the fury of a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. Every creature that survived Earth's storms, poisons, beasts, and wars had passed on its legacy. That legacy now roared across the stars. The Thalori whispered among themselves in fear and awe. Were these truly saviors, or had they summoned something far worse? For the first time, they understood the meaning of the word Deathworlder. And as the enemy fleet began to break under the onslaught, as ships that once ruled the galaxy turned to flee, the Thalori realized a truth that would never leave them. When Deathworlders come to answer your call for help, you may survive. But the galaxy itself will never be the same again. First contact, the battlefield burned in silence. Fragments of ruined ships drifted through the void like broken bones, glowing faintly against the dark. The Thalori had expected the arrival of their rescuers to bring relief. Instead, they felt something heavier, something colder. They had been saved, yes, but saved by hands that carried fire. When the human fleet pulled into formation above the Thalori world, the skies seemed to darken. The ships hung like black mountains in orbit, casting long shadows across the clouds. The enemy had fled, leaving behind only wreckage and silence. For the first time in years, no bombardment rained from the heavens. Yet the Thalori did not cheer. They only watched, whispering in fear. From the largest of the human warships came a signal. The voice was sharp, steady, and carried no warmth. Thalori survivors, this world is under our protection. Remain within your cities. Do not approach the fleet. The message ended. No greetings. No comfort. Just orders. The Thalori leaders gathered in their shattered council hall, their eyes wide with unease. They had begged for salvation and it had arrived. But salvation had never looked like this. They had expected kind words, gentle ships, and promises of peace. Instead, they were spoken to like children, commanded to stay quiet. Some argued that it did not matter. What was pride when weighed against survival? Others whispered that perhaps they had made a mistake, that perhaps they had summoned predators more dangerous than their enemy. Above them, the humans moved with precision. Their ships swarmed in patterns, repairing damage, retrieving debris, scanning every corner of the system. They did not rest. They did not celebrate. They worked as though this battle had been nothing more than another task in a long, endless war. When the first human dropships descended, the Thalori gathered at the city's edge. The machines tore through the clouds with trails of fire, settling heavily on the scorched earth. Their doors opened and the humans stepped out. The Thalori gasped. They had expected towering monsters, beasts to match the legend of a death world. Instead, humans looked almost fragile. They were tall, yes, but not giants. They wore armor that gleamed with battle scars, helmets that glowed with faint blue lights. But beneath it all, they were flesh and bone that had somehow destroyed fleets. The lead human removed their helmet, revealing a face carved by time and war. Their eyes scanned the alien crowd, cold and calculating, yet not cruel. This was not the face of a savior. It was the face of someone who had seen too much death to fear it anymore. The Thalori elder stepped forward, his voice trembling. You came. You saved us. We thank you. The human did not bow, did not smile. They only said, you called. We answered. The war is not over. Behind them, the soldiers spread out, moving like hunters in a land they did not trust. Every corner was scanned, every shadow checked. The Thalori realized something then. These were not soldiers who fought for glory. These were survivors, moving through every moment as if death was waiting for them at the next breath. That night, when the city lay under the watch of human guards, the Thalori could not sleep. They whispered in their homes, asking questions they could not answer. Who were these humans? What had shaped them into this? How had flesh so fragile defeated powers so great? And above them, in the vast halls of their flagship, the human commanders spoke in voices the Thalori could not hear. They discussed strategies, supply chains, and the next enemy stronghold. To them, the Thalori were not a people to admire or fear. They were simply another task, another life saved in a galaxy that had forgotten mercy. But one truth echoed in the minds of the rescued. Salvation had come, yes, but it did not wear the face of peace. It wore the armor of war. And as dawn broke over the wounded world, the Thalori understood a final truth. Their future was now tied to the humans, and humanity born from a death world did not walk gently. The enemy meets humanity. The enemy fleet had not expected resistance. For years, they had crushed every world that stood in their path. Their ships were sleek and fast, armed with weapons that had broken countless civilizations. They were predators of the galaxy, and the Thalori were meant to be their next easy prey. When the humans arrived, the enemy commanders laughed. Their sensors showed crude vessels, heavy and slow. Their spies had heard of Earth, a small world on the edge of the void, a place spoken of only in rumors. No empire claimed them, no great alliance guarded them. To the enemy, humans were nothing but noise in the dark. Another desperate race throwing stones, one commander sneered as the first human warship came into range. We will break them as we broke the rest. The order was given. A storm of plasma fire burst across the void. The enemy expected the humans to scatter, to retreat, to crumble under the weight of their power. Instead, the human ships kept coming. Shields flared, armor cracked, but still they advanced. The enemy commanders frowned. Something was wrong. Then the humans answered. The first volley tore through an enemy cruiser, splitting its hull into two burning halves. The second volley crippled another. The humans fired with precision that defied belief. every shot finding its mark, every weapon moving in unison. The enemy's laughter died. They should not fight like this, one captain whispered. Not with such accuracy, not with such rage. As the battle unfolded, the enemy realized the truth too late. These were not crude ships. These were weapons shaped by survival. The humans did not fight for honor or for glory. They fought to win, and they fought as if losing was unthinkable. The enemy tried to adapt. Formation shifted, new strategies were deployed. But every move was countered, every attempt blocked. The humans fought like predators who had studied their prey for a lifetime. They closed distance without fear, their warships ramming through smaller vessels, unleashing storms of fire at point-blank range. On the bridge of one enemy battleship, the commander felt his hands tremble. Through the viewport, he saw a human warship dragging itself forward, half its hull burning, shields shattered, but guns still firing. It should have fallen. Any other species would have turned back. But the humans pressed on as if pain itself was fuel for their fury. They are insane, the commander whispered. They are not soldiers. They are beasts. The enemy fleets began to break. Ships that had once carried pride now turned in panic. Escape orders were shouted. Retreat signals filled the channels. But retreat was impossible. The humans pursued with relentless force, every missile, every cannon round hunting down those who tried to flee. One enemy pilot screamed into the comms before his ship was torn apart. They are deathworlders. They cannot be stopped. The word spread like fire, deathworlder. It carried terror in every tongue. No one had spoken it in truth for centuries. Worlds like Earth were myths, places where no life should have endured. Yet here was proof. Here was the nightmare made real. The humans had come not as rescuers but as predators unleashed. By the time the battle ended, the void was filled with wreckage. The enemy fleet was shattered, its proud banners reduced to burning debris. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of dying engines and the groans of ruptured metal. The humans did not celebrate. Their fleet moved with the same cold precision, gathering their wounded, finishing their scans, preparing for the next strike. To them, this was not victory. This was only another step. And somewhere, far from the battlefield, whispers began to spread. Empires listened. Merchant guilds trembled. Warriors sharpened their blades with unease. The message was clear. Humanity had entered the stage of the galaxy. And wherever they walked, fire followed. For the first time in generations, the predators of the stars felt fear. The Deathworld legacy, the battle was over. But the silence that followed was heavier than war itself. The wreckage of enemy fleets drifted across the void like a graveyard of steel. The Thalori stood in their ruined city, gazing up at the human warships that still circled above. They had been saved, but no one among them dared to celebrate. In the days that followed, the truth of humanity began to spread. The Thalori spoke in whispers, trying to understand their saviors. The word Deathworlder was repeated again and again, rolling from mouth to mouth like a forbidden prayer. Some had never heard the word before. Others knew it well, but had never believed it was real. Now it was no longer a myth. Now it hung above them in orbit, watching with unblinking eyes. The humans never rested. Every hour, their ships moved in tight patterns. Their soldiers patrolled the city streets, eyes scanning for threats that no one else could see. The Thalori noticed how the humans ate quickly, slept lightly, and always carried weapons, even inside the safety of their own ships. It was as if they expected death to come at every moment, and perhaps they did. One young Thalori asked her father, "Why do they never smile?" He could not answer. The elders of the Thalori tried to meet with the human commanders. They brought gifts, crystals, food, fabrics from their culture, but the humans did not take them. Their leader only said, "We are not here for tribute. We are here for war." That night, around the council fire, the Thalori elders argued. Some said humanity was a blessing, a shield placed between them and extinction. Others said humanity was a curse, a storm that would consume everything it touched. Beyond their world, rumors ran like fire through the stars. Traders carried tales of what had happened. Smugglers told stories of the Deathworld Fleet that had crushed the uncrushable. In the courts of great empires, nobles leaned forward as their advisors spoke the word Earth with shaking voices. Fear spread faster than truth, and soon the galaxy knew. A new power had awakened. The legends grew. Some said humans could breathe poison and swim through fire. Some claimed their ships were built from the bones of their enemies. Others whispered that Earth itself was alive, that it had forged its children from storms and hunger and endless war. But the truth, though less dramatic, was far more terrifying. Humanity was simply a species that had never been allowed peace. Their world had killed the weak and hardened the strong. Their history was written in war and survival. Every human carried within them the weight of a million struggles. The Thalori saw this most clearly when a small boy from their city wandered too close to a human camp. A soldier noticed him and stepped forward, kneeling down. The boy looked into the soldier's eyes and froze. Those eyes were not cruel, not unkind, but they were old. Older than they should have been. Eyes that had seen hunger, storms, and death. Eyes that belonged not to a soldier, but to a survivor. The boy ran back to his people, whispering, "They look like us, but they are not like us." The days stretched on, and the humans prepared to leave. Their ships loaded supplies, their commanders spoke of the next battle. The Thalori begged them to stay, to guard their world from any return of the enemy, but the human commander only shook his head. "You are not the only ones in danger," he said. "The galaxy is wide, and many have cried for help." "We will answer." "Then what of us?" the Thalori elder asked. The human paused, his voice quiet but heavy. "You will learn to stand, or you will fall again. Survival is not given, it is taken." With that, the Deathworld Fleet rose into the skies, vanishing into the void. The Thalori watched them go, torn between relief and dread. They had been saved. Yes, but they had also been changed. The memory of those ships, those eyes, those voices, none of it would leave them. Their songs no longer spoke of beauty and peace. Now they sang of the day the Deathworlders came, and the day everything changed, and across the stars the galaxy whispered of Earth. Some prepared to ally with them, others prepared to fight. But none could forget the image of burning fleets and the voice that said, "We are coming." Because now everyone knew the truth. Humanity had stepped into the light of the galaxy, and wherever they went, history would bend. The price of salvation. The Thalori world was quiet when the humans departed. Their skies were clear for the first time in years, but the silence carried no comfort. The people stood in the streets, staring upward long after the last human ship had vanished into the void. They had been saved, yet unease wrapped itself around every heart. The young whispered questions. Will they return? Will they guard us? The elders gave no answers, for they had none. In the ruins of their council hall, the leaders argued once more. Some praised humanity as protectors sent by fate. Others warned that what they had seen was not protection at all, but conquest wrapped in another form. They did not come for us, one elder said softly. They came for war. We were only the excuse, and he was not wrong. For far from the Thalori homeworld, the humans prepared for their next strike. Their fleet did not rest. Their forges burned, their engines roared. To them, the galaxy was not a place of wonder. It was a battlefield waiting to be mapped. The Thalori were one small part of a war that had no end, yet the Thalori could not forget. When they walked their streets, they saw the faces of human soldiers in their minds, faces that carried no joy, no triumph, only the weight of endless survival. And though their city still stood, though their children still breathed, they asked themselves a question that no one dared speak aloud. Had they been saved, or had they been marked? The answer began to show itself in the months that followed. Traders who passed through their system brought news. Entire fleets had fallen to the humans. Strong empires now spoke cautiously of Earth, no longer with mockery but with fear. Worlds whispered of forming alliances not out of love but out of necessity. And those who had once ruled without challenge began to retreat, their pride cut open by the sight of burning ships. But with salvation came a shadow. Wherever humanity's fleet passed, destruction followed. Yes, they saved the weak. Yes, they broke the strong. But the scars they left on battlefields were deep and black. Ash did not vanish. Silence did not heal, and those who were saved looked at the stars differently, no longer in hope but in dread of the next arrival. The Thalori children, who once sang songs of beauty and rivers, now sang songs of steel. They carved human warships into their walls, painted the stars red with fire. They had begun to dream like deathworlders, even without meaning to. One night, an old Thalori elder sat with his grandson by the river. The boy asked him, "Grandfather, are the humans good?" The elder stared at the water for a long time. Finally he said, "They are not good. They are not evil. They are what their world made them. And now they are what the galaxy will have to endure." The boy was silent, but in his eyes there was both fear and something else. Something sharper, something harder. Perhaps even admiration. And so the truth spread, not in words, but in silence. The Thalori knew they would never again see the galaxy as they once had. They had called for salvation, and salvation had come. But it had come with a price. The price was simple. The galaxy no longer belonged to the rulers who had crushed them. It no longer belonged to empires or conquerors. It now belonged to a species born from storms, sharpened by fire, and carried on ships of war. Humanity had arrived. The Thalori had asked for saviors. What they received was a fleet of deathworlders who bent history with every step. And in the years to come, every race, every empire, and every child who looked to the stars would remember the same lesson. When you beg for help, and humans answer, you will survive. But the galaxy itself will never survive unchanged.